with strikes exchanged. Israel and Iran are attacking each other. Acts of civil disobedience in the U.S. have promised to stage mass demonstrations on Trump's birthday. Practicality and beauty. Designers are preparing for the finals of a clothing competition for people with disabilities. The top stories at this hour. In the studio, Ilya Fedorovtsev. Hello. At least 3 Israelis have been killed and dozens injured as a result of Iranian rocket attacks. About 150 rockets, including ballistic missiles, were launched at Israeli targets. The shelling was carried out in 5 massive waves. As emphasized by the Israeli Prime Minister's office, most of the rockets were intercepted by missile defense systems. However, the destruction on the ground tells a different story. Hundreds of buildings have been damaged, including military facilities and headquarters. Meanwhile, the exchange of strikes continues. Iranian media report explosions in the west of the country, while Israel's defense minister has stated that Tehran will burn if the Islamic Republic continues its attacks. Against this backdrop, the IDF reported the elimination of 9 key Iranian nuclear scientists. All the latest information is in the report by our correspondents Alexei Kvashinkin and Alexei Veselovsky.
The night sky over Tel Aviv became the scene of an aerial battle. Missiles against missiles, right above residential neighborhoods. In a movie, shots like these would be mesmerizing, but this is a real battle. From the ground up, a missile from Israel's Iron Dome. A unique air defense system considered nearly flawless for many years. But tonight, it faced a real test, a whole swarm of missiles. In the last. I'm out on the street, talking about all sorts of things that concern us. Within the past hour, 2 salvos of surface-to-surface missiles were launched from Iran toward the territory of the State of Israel. Each salvo contained fewer than 100 missiles, most of which were intercepted by air defense systems or failed to reach their targets. There were a limited number of hits on buildings. I'm in shock. This strike is probably the most painful for Israel, if not in terms of damage, then at least in terms of reputation. The building right next to the air defense launcher was none other than the Ministry of Defense in Tel Aviv. Iranian authorities report that it was hit twice. Independent confirmation was received from a correspondent of the American channel Fox News, who was working on site.
This is Israel's version of.
This is the Israeli Pentagon. One of the buildings in this complex was just hit. Is this what it looks like now from Galga? Step back, please. The situation here is very tense. The Iranians are targeting Israel's defense facilities. Now we're going to point the camera at that building.
What stands out is that the missile that broke through the Iron Dome was flying at a much higher speed than the others. And it wasn't the only one. The impact has a distinctive condensation wave, indicating that a missile with a very powerful warhead was used.
The latest modifications of these missiles are quite long-range, apparently equipped with some kind of air defense countermeasures, and, accordingly, carry a huge payload in the form of a warhead. If we're talking about the missiles that are hitting Israel, their warheads are around a ton.
The Iranian retaliatory strike was named True Promise 3. Its targets are supposed to be more than 150 military sites on Israeli territory. But there is also destruction in residential areas.
The Zionist regime made a huge mistake. By Allah's will, this mistake will lead Israel to despair. We will not make any concessions. The lives of Israelis will undoubtedly become bitter. They think they can attack us, and that will be the end of it. No, they started this, they unleashed the war.
The massive missile strike was a response to the large-scale operation launched by Israel. Its goal is to nip the Iranian nuclear program in the bud, which, according to the Jewish state, has shifted to a military track.
In the past 24 hours, we have eliminated top military commanders, leading nuclear scientists, the largest enrichment facility of the Islamic regime, and most of its ballistic missile arsenal. And there's more to come. The regime has no idea what hit them. They don't know what's going to hit them next.
One of the results of the Israeli strike is a radiation leak inside the nuclear complex in Natanz. For obvious reasons, there is no reliable information about the actual state of the infrastructure. These are the most highly classified sites in Iran, but the combination of the words war and nuclear facilities made politicians around the world shudder. An emergency meeting of the UN Security Council, attended by IAEA leadership, ended just a few hours ago. My colleague from Washington, Alexei Veselovsky, will tell you about the statements and the context in which they were made.
On one hand, the United States is doing everything it can to distance itself from Israel's attacks on Iran. But on the other hand, it's making it clear that Israel is doing everything right. Shortly after the strikes, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Israel had taken unilateral action against Iran. We are not involved in the strikes on Iran, and our main priority is the protection of American forces in the region, Rubio emphasized. But a little later on social media, President Trump made it clear that the White House was aware of the planned strikes. And Trump called them excellent, warning Tehran that more, and even more serious, strikes would follow. I have given Iran chance after chance to negotiate. There has already been enough death and destruction, but there is still time for this carnage, with further, already planned and much harsher strikes, to end. Iran must make a deal before there is nothing left, and save what was once known as the Persian Empire, wrote the U.S. president. Trump does not want to get dragged into a war with Iran, but at the same time, he makes it clear that in this confrontation, he gives his unconditional support to Israel. Washington insists that American forces stationed in the Middle East are helping the Israeli army shoot down Iranian missiles. However, the U.S. allegedly did not take any military part in the strikes against Iran. Iran does not believe this. At an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council in New York, the Islamic Republic's permanent representative accused the U.S. of supporting the attack.
Last night, the Israeli regime, the most dangerous and terrorist regime in the world, with full intelligence and political support from the United States, carried out a series of coordinated military attacks against several cities in Iran. We condemn this barbaric criminal attack. 78 people were killed and 320 were wounded. Most of them were civilians, including women and children.
Iran called the strikes on its territory an act of war. In response, U.S. Representative McCoy Pitt warned Iran to refrain from any reckless actions.
Iran must not attack American interests or personnel. Let me be clear, no government, no proxy forces, and no independent actors should attack American citizens, American bases, or any other American infrastructure in the region. The consequences for Iran will be dire.
Pitt called on the Iranian leadership to return to the negotiating table. Another round, the sixth, of talks between representatives of the U.S. and the Islamic Republic on Iran's nuclear program was scheduled for June 15th in Amman. However, there are now serious doubts that they will take place.
Unprovoked attacks on the territory of sovereign Iran, targeted strikes on peaceful nuclear infrastructure, cannot be justified in any way. The international community must not and cannot remain indifferent to such provocations. Turning a blind eye to these actions is a path to a major war in the region and a serious threat to global security.
Meanwhile, the United States may strengthen its presence in the region. In addition to the 40,000 American soldiers already stationed throughout the Middle East, Washington plans to send the Carl Vinson Carrier Group and several additional destroyers to the Mediterranean Sea.
But in order to stop the conflict, the entire negotiation process will have to start over, as Trump told the CNN correspondent in his own style, due to obvious problems with the participants in the talks.
He said, the people I was dealing with. He said, the people I was dealing with. Said, the people I was negotiating with are dead. Taking a firm stance. I want to emphasize that. I asked again, so you're saying that Israel just killed the people you were negotiating with? And Trump replied with heavy sarcasm, they didn't die from the flu or from COVID.
Tehran intends to keep its honest promise for at least a week. Israel is not disclosing any timeline for the completion of the special operation Rising Lion. This morning began with a new airstrike on the city of Hamadan in western Iran, where a major airbase is located. Alexei Kvashenkin, Alexei Veselovsky, Alexander Yusov, and Pavel Kronik, NTV television company.
Another group of Russian servicemen returned today from Ukrainian captivity. This was reported by our Ministry of Defense. The exchange took place in accordance with the Russian-Ukrainian agreements reached in Istanbul on June 2nd. The Russian servicemen freed from Ukrainian captivity are now on the territory of Belarus. They are receiving medical and psychological assistance. After this, they will still need treatment and rehabilitation at medical facilities of the Russian Ministry of Defense. According to the Istanbul agreements, 2 categories of prisoners are subject to an all-for-all exchange: the wounded and seriously ill, as well as individuals under the age of 25.
Russia.
The United States is preparing for one of the largest acts of civil disobedience in the country's history. It has been called the Day Without Kings. The organizers have timed it to coincide with Trump's birthday. Today he turns 79. In anticipation of mass marches and unrest, barriers have been set up on the streets of major cities. The police have switched to heightened patrols. In total, more than 1,500 different events are planned across the country. Some of them are in Washington. Today, an official parade dedicated to the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army is also scheduled to take place there. Activists want to disrupt it. But the center of the protest movement remains Los Angeles. The unrest there hasn't died down since last week. It erupted after large-scale raids by the Immigration Service. Federal authorities even sent National Guard forces to the state to calm the protesters. Participants in the International Adaptive Clothing Competition called On Wings are preparing for the finals of a major forum. The competition is being held for the 4th time with the support of the Defenders of the Fatherland Foundation. This year, dozens of designers from different regions of our country, as well as designers from India, Brazil, Turkey, and other countries, submitted their creations. Yevgeny Golovanov evaluated the practicality and beauty of this special clothing.
With the sound of a machine gun burst, and at the same speed, the sewing machine prints the designer pattern onto the fabric. Inspired by the idea of creating beautiful and practical clothing for SVO veterans who became disabled after being wounded, the factory workers began producing a new line.
Easy access.
These and hundreds of other models are presented at the International Adaptive Clothing Design Competition on Wings, organized by the Defenders of the Fatherland Foundation.
This project is very important to us because it concerns people with disabilities and special health needs. And we're saying that these people should be able to reintegrate into society as quickly as possible, get back to work, play sports, and lead an active lifestyle. Of course, to do that, they need clothing that is comfortable, convenient, stylish, and modern. We found that there just isn't enough of this kind of clothing available.
Often, when veterans return from the Special Military Operations Zone, they continue wearing their military field uniforms even in civilian life. They've grown so attached to them, and this is gradually becoming a trend. Russian fashion designers have picked up on this trend. This year, the festival program even introduced a new category called military.
It's very important here that our designers will be able to express themselves, and right now, the military style is going to be in high demand. And again, all these external sanctions are actually working in our favor, because now everything is for our designers, for our inventors. I think society will welcome this with great enthusiasm.
This time, the competition received over 280 applications from fashion designers and designers from 67 regions of Russia and several foreign countries: the Republic of Belarus, Turkey, Jordan, Brazil, Nigeria, Pakistan, and Costa Rica. Among the designers, there are quite a few who started developing and sewing clothes for people with disabilities after going through such challenges themselves. At first, they sewed for themselves or their children, and then decided to help others.
Here we have an elastic band, a drawstring, which protects against the wind. Dasha will be warm, comfortable, and cozy.
Designers try to make children's clothing not just comfortable, but also bright and colorful to bring more vivid colors into their lives. At the shows, the audience greets not so much the outfits, but the participants themselves who walk the runway with applause.
For the participants, it's kind of, let's say, both an experience and a form of socialization. And for some, it's also rehabilitation, communication, all of it together. For some, it really turns into a creative hobby of sorts, like runway modeling, you could say. That's right. And above all the participants get positive emotions from it. It's indescribable. Afterwards, they all share their experiences and talk with each other.
Overall, the international competition on wings is designed to encourage the search for new ideas and technologies in the field of adaptive clothing design and to motivate designers to create it. Although the main motivation is already clear and obvious. Evgeny Golovanov and Olga Fuzarina, NTV.
That's all from us for now. Visit our website at ntv.ru. See you next time.